There was a moment hundreds of thousands of years ago when a human being stopped waiting for shelter and built one instead. No cave, no overhang, just open ground, a cold wind, and a decision that would change the species forever. This is the story of the first home ever built, and the material used to build it will surprise you. For most of human history, you do not build a home, you find one. Long before anyone shapes a wall or lays a foundation, shelter means one thing: a gap in the rock, a cave mouth facing away from the wind, a shallow overhang just deep enough to keep the rain off your back. You do not choose these places because they are comfortable. You choose them because the alternative is dying exposed, in the open, with nothing between you and the night. But here's the problem almost nobody talks about. Caves are rare. Cliffs with the right shape, in the right place, near water, near food, are rarer still. For every group lucky enough to find one, there are others walking across open plains, river valleys, and grassy steppe with no rock formation in sight for 100 miles. So what do you do when the landscape gives you nothing? You improvise. And the very first shelters humans ever built are so simple they barely look intentional at all. A windbreak of branches leaned against each other, angled to block the worst of the gusts. A few stones stacked low to keep the fire from scattering. It is barely architecture. It is closer to instinct given shape. But something changes around 400,000 years ago on the coast of what is now southern France, at a place archaeologists call Terra Amata. Early humans do something that at the time is nearly unthinkable. They do not just lean branches against a rock. They dig post holes into open ground in a deliberate oval and stand branches upright in a ring, the first known outline of an actual, planned structure. Inside, there is a hearth, positioned carefully so smoke does not choke the people sleeping around it. Think about what that means. This is not a shelter that happens to exist because branches fell the right way. This is a plan, a shape decided upon before it is built. Someone stood on that empty ground and pictured the finished structure before a single branch was placed. That is the birth of architecture. Not a mansion, not a temple, just an oval ring of sticks on a beach. But it is the first time a human looks at nothing and sees a home. Still, wood and branches only get you so far. They rot, they burn, and on certain landscapes, they simply do not exist at all. Picture the open steppe of Ice Age Ukraine, tens of thousands of years later. The wind here has no mercy. There are no forests, no thick tree cover, nothing to lean against the gale. For hundreds of miles in every direction, the land is flat, frozen, and almost entirely without wood. And yet, people are living here, thriving here even. So where do the walls come from if there is nothing to build with? The answer, when it was first uncovered by archaeologists, stunned them. The walls are made of mammoth bone. Not one or two bones as decoration. Entire structures built from dozens of massive mammoth skulls, jaws, tusks, and leg bones, stacked and interlocked with deliberate precision, like a skeleton turned inside out to become a house. At a site called Mezerich, archaeologists uncovered the remains of huts built almost entirely from the bones of at least 60 mammoths, arranged in careful, repeating patterns. Jaw bones stacked to form the base of a wall. Curved tusks arched overhead like the ribs of an enormous animal reborn as shelter. Why bone? Because in a place with no trees, the only large, rigid material available in any quantity is what remains after a hunt. Or, just as often, bones scavenged from mammoths that died naturally, collected over time from a landscape where these animals had lived and died for generations. This changes how you have to think about your food source. A mammoth is not just meat for the next few weeks. It is meat, yes, but it is also fuel. If the bones are dried and burned as a substitute for scarce wood, it is tools from splinters and shafts. And now, remarkably, it is shelter. Every part of the animal is pulled into the architecture of survival. Building one of these homes is not a weekend project. It requires moving bones that weigh as much as a grown adult, positioning them precisely so the structure does not collapse under its own weight or the weight of snow, and covering the frame with hides stretched tight to keep the wind out. This is not a single person's task. It is a coordinated group effort requiring planning, teamwork, and shared knowledge passed down through repeated construction, season after season. And once built, these structures are not temporary. Evidence suggests some of these mammoth bone dwellings were used, repaired, and rebuilt across multiple seasons, meaning that, for the first time, a specific patch of ground is not just a place you happen to be, it is a place you return to, a place that is, in every meaningful sense, yours. Here is where the story takes its sharpest turn. For all the danger of the Ice Age Steppe, the cold, the scarcity, the predators competing for the same shrinking resources, the humans who built these bone houses were not simply surviving despite their environment. They were the first people in history to turn their environment's biggest threat into their shelter's foundation. The same massive animals capable of trampling a hunting party to death became, after the hunt, the material that kept that same group alive through a brutal winter. That reversal, turning the very thing that could kill you into the structure that protects you, is not an accident. It requires generations of accumulated knowledge about mammoth anatomy, weight distribution, and construction technique, refined and passed down until building with bone becomes as normal, as routine, as building with wood is to someone living in a forest. And this is the part almost no one connects to their own life today. The moment humans shift from finding shelter to building shelter, whether from branches on a French coastline or mammoth bone on the Ukrainian steppe, is the exact moment home stops being a location and starts being a technology. A cave cannot be improved. It is what it is, wherever nature placed it. But a built structure can be adjusted, repaired, expanded, and improved every single time it is rebuilt. Every one of those small improvements, made by people who never saw themselves as architects, accumulates. A slightly better hearth placement here, a slightly sturdier wall joint there. Over tens of thousands of years, this accumulation of small, practical decisions is the direct, unbroken line between that first ring of branches on a beach and the last home you slept in last night. You did not need to find a cave this morning. You did not spend today negotiating with the landscape, hoping the rock formations near you happen to line up with shelter, water, and food. That entire negotiation was already won, tens of thousands of years ago, by people who decided the ground itself was not going to dictate whether they lived or died. The first home was never really about comfort. It was a declaration, quiet, practical, and utterly without ceremony, that human beings were no longer only creatures who adapted to the world exactly as they found it. They were creatures who could reshape a patch of ground with sticks or with the bones of a fallen giant into something the world had never offered them on its own. That is the real reveal hiding inside every wall you have ever stood behind. The first home was not a shelter from the world. It was proof that the world no longer got the final say.